Welcome to the podcast, everybody. This is my second podcast ever. And I'm Craig Slyke here with Liger Partners. And I am here with Bernard Parks Jr. of Tommy Run, also former producer, music exec with Goody Mob and the whole Atlanta music scene. So welcome to the podcast, Bernard Parks Jr.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Good.
Thank you for having me, Craig.
I'm really happy to have you here because my whole part of the jungle for Liger is talking about creativity and creativity in business, in life, not just artistry. Because I feel like people mix up creativity and artistry a lot. Creativity is being able to figure out another way to do something. Artistry is more like creating something.
Yeah.
And, creation is instilled in all of us. I mean, the first sins of the Bible is God created the earth. It's the first thing He did.
Right.
So I am interested in how both creativity and artistry are intertwined.
Wonderful.
With you, Mr. Bernard Parks. So, so can you tell me about your early life? How did you have a very creative childhood?
Yeah, I've always been a mix of creativity and artistry. Sometimes, it got me into a lot of trouble. You know how that goes, right?
Oh yeah, some of my most creative things were pulling pranks.
So creativity and artistry most definitely is something. But yes, early on, I've always been creative, and my father always taught me to think outside the box. And I think those are one of the things that he instilled in me early. What I will tell you is that, I played instruments, music, was always outside working and trying to do something creative when it came down to being out in the neighborhoods and that kind of stuff. And we would, I was always an entrepreneur at that. I mean, I never will forget my mother talked to me about she said, you started entrepreneurship early. I said, what do you mean? She said, the teachers called one day because you were selling candy apples in elementary school. And you told me that you would carry them to your friends. So, early on, I was a creative thinker, right? Because I knew she wasn't going to approve of me selling candy apples in school. So
the other kids.
Yeah, subsequently go from there, and being in music, I also did a lot of sports. And moving from there, going into high school, when we were young, they had a lot of dance contests, believe it or not. I mean, there were talent shows and stuff that we would participate in. So, it was, I may be telling my age now at this point as well, but it was an exciting time. But I've always been, somewhat of a hybrid of creative and culturally, aware.
I would love to see that footage.
Yeah.
But then, and your father was a lawyer, an attorney, and
yes,
your mother.
My father and Maynard Jackson were law partners, and my father helped create the minority participation goals that you currently see here in Atlanta, as well as he was the first African American in the Red Book of Bonding. And that's doing, municipal bond deals and that type of stuff. And he traveled the country doing those types of deals. So he inspired me a lot. And my mother, on the other side of the table, was creative. She was a singer when she was younger, but she actually went on after my father got married, and she then went to become a social worker. And she moved from being a social worker to actually going to law school. And she graduated from law school at the same time I graduated from high school. And subsequently, that's actually how I ended up getting in the entertainment business, because I was really recruiting talent for my mother because she wanted to be an entertainment lawyer.
Oh, that's really.
My guys showed up, man, and they had, beer and that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, y'all gonna really need some help. And they didn't have a management team, and that's how it was all started.
Okay, so you were looking for acts for your mother to manage,
Yep.
and you just went and hung out with your friends or sought out the talent around Atlanta.
Yes, I actually wasn't really looking for management. I mean, it was really. She wasn't. I wasn't looking for her for management. It was for her to do the legal work. And that's kind of how that all worked. But I was already in the scene, and some of the guys, felt that I would be responsible enough. Because the other portion about that is my father. Not only was he a part of Maynard's law firm, but most people did not know is that he had a partner named David Franklin, who was Shirley Franklin's husband. But David Franklin represented Richard Pryor, Donny Hathaway, and a lot of those big entertainers back then. He actually got a lot of credit for bringing Richard Pryor into film and television when a lot of those films were filmed here in the state of Georgia. So, that was the history, right? So, just being a part of that makeup of the city was, in the fabric of Atlanta was really exciting at that time.
That's great. I mean, and now the entertainment industry in Atlanta is huge, and it all started with your father and his friend and Richard Pryor.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's back in the day, when you had, all the guys that were coming through Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's always been that scene. So, it was a good thing.
And now it's finally getting the recognition it deserves.
Yeah, well, I think that Outkast had a lot to do with that by kicking in the doors at the time when I was working with them in Organized Noise on the Goody Mob camp. And, they really, I believe specifically, it's interesting because for rap, because beforehand you had Dallas Austin, you had Jermaine Dupri, you had a lot of those guys who were producing a lot of R&B records. And as well as, Jermaine, I give him credit because he came with the Crisscross, which was the first, I guess, thing that made major commercial success. Beforehand, you had regional guys like MC Shadi and, a lot of those guys, Kilo, a lot of guys, Raheem the Dream, I'd be, foolish not to mention some of those guys that actually were in our neighborhoods. But before then, you had Larry Blackmans and a lot of those other guys that were major talents. Gladys Knight and, Peebo Bryson, but it was all R&B. And so for me, when it came down to real, rap and hip hop going all the way across, most definitely Outkast gave a creative stance.
Oh, yeah. And there's still, to this day, Atlanta royalty.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that whole Dungeon family for me is Atlanta royalty because they came in at a very tough time for the Atlanta scene because everything was dominated from the north up in New York and on the West Coast.
Yeah,
the whole be able to break through that was very important.
And then all of a sudden, here comes Atlanta right out of the South, and it's like, hey, we've got our own sound. We've got our own.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And so, how did you move your creativity and your artistry? Because you're in front of the mic and behind the soundboard, both, right?
Well, yeah, I'm really more behind the scenes. I really didn't do any production. They would give you credit for different things. What I'm saying is that, Organized Noise most definitely was the power, the influence. I would not have been in the business without their assistance and support, specifically from Rico. So, I was always behind the scenes. This is the actual first time for me being in the front when I got into technology. Like beforehand, I was always behind the scenes, always wanting to not be the front person. But when starting this technology company between me and my partner, we actually had to have a face to this company. And I was forced into that. I was forced into it. And so
okay, put me in the front.
Yeah, I didn't have a choice. I tried to push my friend BJ into it. BJ is my co-founder and partner with Regents Renovations. And we actually, started when we were doing construction. We started in the music scene together. And subsequently later on, when we were both spinning off doing other things, I realized that not only did BJ do a great job in construction, but he was also a Stanford guy. And, that was pretty different for me because I did not know anybody at that time who had graduated from Stanford.
Yeah.
But it was exciting to find someone, at least one of my friends that I found was, a very bright guy and early on in Stanford University.
That's awesome. And is that Culture Republic that you started
Yeah,
with him?
well, so Culture Republic is BJ, myself, and a gentleman, Jason Jeter. Jason was the force and the management behind Grand Hustle with T.I. My producer, Aldrin Davis, DJ Toon, he's the one who actually found T.I. and produced him and gave him a lot of those records. Jason went on to manage his career and move him to great heights. And Jason has been able to do a great job with Grand Hustle.
And that started the whole trap movement, didn't it?
Yeah, that started the trap movement. Aldrin Davis, DJ Toomp, once again, strong. And, this was his second time because at first he was in bass. He was the one who was producing a lot of those early bass records in Atlanta. And later on, he subsequently went on to find the trap music sound, and he gave that to T.I. and gave him a bunch of big records.
So cool. And so from your music thing, you wanted to have something in the technology area, right?
Well, yeah, that was kind of interesting. It was a different transition for me. I mean, when you talk about creativity and so forth, what I always did while doing music is I did real estate. Real estate was a passion that my mother brought to me. And so she taught me that skill set. And my father would take me to go and do title searches and that kind of stuff down at the courthouse. But subsequently, what I liked to do was actually build. And so that was my hobby that I did on the side while working and doing commercial developments and so forth. And it gave me a creative outlet. But there was a gentleman who talked to me back in 2016 who basically said, look, Bernard, within our community, once our community starts understanding technology as problem solving, we'll start to excel. And I will say is that Jason was the first one to say, hey, if we start this new company, what would that mix look like now today? And we believe that technology should be a part of it. So when we were doing some research and I was moving around, one of the things that I realized is there was always an issue for construction materials on the job site, and that was always a problem. And when building this house, I mean, it stayed in my head based off of what a friend of mine told me. And subsequently, I started doing some research. And when doing some research, he also explained to me is that, guys in the music business, he felt like were one of the first people in technology. And when we would say that is, I mean, a very strong phrase that's used in technology is fail fast.
Yeah.
And so everybody, they've written books about it and so forth. Well, that was something that you learned organically early in the music industry, and it was called a single. You would put a single out. If it worked, then you put out an album. If it didn't work, then you put out another single before you put out that album. Then later on, we had the same feeling when it came down to mixtapes, because what we would do is put out mixtapes, and if the mixtape was hot, then you put out an album. So we were always testing the market and adjusting to the market. And so he felt like that was a natural thing for us. And the other portion about that is that even in technology, what we did was early on, we were unhooking speakers and plugging up mixers and scratching and doing all these other things that were really, a part of a technology scene, but really not acknowledging it because we were always still calling it music. But it was technology and
creativity in technology. Like you're not just using it, you're finding out a way to use it in a different way than it was intended.
And that's exactly right. And so that's why, he was always very strong in pushing in that direction. And I just started to decide to take a lot of that information and a lot of things that I learned to apply to technology. And that's been my driver and force. And, one of the things that even excited me when I was reading those articles about technology is I started understanding market share and a lot of the things that actually went on in the music business. I mean, we would have to come up with promotional items, and based off how many records you sold, determined what those promotional items price would be to give to those customers. It was similar to your customer acquisition costs, right? Because you're still trying to grab more customers and a lot of those things, right? And then you talk about lifetime value. When you would do that, you wanted to approach kids when they were in middle school. They were much more impressionable. And they would grow old with you and go through middle school, high school, and on to college, which gave you a long career in the music business. So, there were a lot of things that you would see that I was able to correlate when technology, and it was exciting. So that really gave me the ability to understand technology from a different perspective, being a non-tech founder.
Yeah, I mean, that's some incredible insights that you just like. This is stuff that people write books about.
Hopefully one day then I'll be able to write a book.
Yes, I'd highly encourage that. So that real estate background and your wanting to interface some technology and came to Tommy Run because you were having trouble building your own house, right? With
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house that I was actually remodeling. I was converting it into a 4-bedroom, 3-bath with a 2-car garage. I'm very proud of that. That was in the Grove Park community. It was an underserviced community, and at that time, those communities were redlined. So I actually bought that house for a little bit of nothing, and I built that house out of my pocket. And I wanted to really understand from the ground level foundation all the way up. And so that was my learning curve for that particular project. And that's when I found out, oh man, this is a huge problem. And then as I started digging into it, I found that it was even bigger than I thought.
Because if you don't have the supplies that you need on site, that can throw everything off because all your contractors are on different schedules. They're going to different job sites. They might not be back there for like another week to keep working on it. And that'll draw out your project.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's one of my guys, BJ. He really, my founder partner, BJ, he is the one who really stressed it to me because when I was doing my project, I would go and get a lot of materials and do those things on my own. And his point was, Bernard, but just imagine the guys who have hard money loans or who have loans. And if they miss a date and it pushes them back 2-3 weeks, that's an extra payment, which is a couple of $1,000s. And so that was one of the things that we decided is that there was a real value proposition based off the productivity and the saving of time. And also, when you look at the construction industry, less than 1% of their money goes into research and development. They are really an old system that has not been updated. So it's ripe for disruption and transition. And so those are the things that I was really excited about with looking at that business. Because, you can impact it in so many different ways. And that's just getting materials there. But then you can start doing software analysis and start being able to put things in there with construction management and all types of other interesting data, I think, that is available in the construction area that has not been explored or exploited before.
Well, what I think is great about I have a real estate background myself, not personally, but my father had some rental houses, and my high school years were helping him, pick those up.
Understand that.
Yeah, I'm tall, so I would always paint the eaves and the overhangs. But when you do real estate or when you create places for people to live, you're impacting your community in such a positive way.
Yes.
So can you talk about how you've impacted your community by improving?
Yeah, that's exciting, man. I think that I've impacted in multiple ways. And I was a part of TechStar's impact program in Austin, Texas, because we do it 2 ways. What we believe is that we create affordable housing within the community, and we help people get job sites and jobs going quickly. People are able to not only live there, but they're also employed. And that's the part of the impact side that I like. Because one of the things we're looking at it is that, what we're able to do is actually give a non-skilled labor a minimum of $30 an hour for deliveries, because we do a sharing economy split. So we're a hybrid. So some of our trucks are company owned and some of them we do through sharing economy, through the gig economy. And through that gig economy, what we're able to do is offer them a high wage because we make the value prop of actually delivering materials to that job site a part of that deal. And so, it's not like some of the other sharing economy platforms where you have to make 2 and 3 trips to make a decent wage. We charge $49 for your minimum order, and that driver gets $30 of that $49. And so, we look at that as being able to fit in a car, sometimes an SUV. And generally our deliveries are less than 15 miles away. But when we have longer deliveries, there's a mileage charge. And so when someone can literally make $30 an hour working with us to be able to cover their expenses as well as make a decent wage.
That's great. I didn't realize that was part of the business.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was just you and you're driving around making deliveries. But
no, so we want to be able to scale, and we believe that's the scalable model. We later on look to do franchising, much like how Amazon does, where you can go out and get trucks, and we'll outfit those trucks for you and get you in the market working. So we look to make a real impact on the community and support it, not only just on the housing side, but also with jobs through driving and doing deliveries.
You're a job creator and a community champion. That's
absolutely fantastic. Most definitely believe in the community.
Well, Bernard, it has been wonderful talking to you. Like, you have the most interesting legacy.
It's a mix. It's a hybrid. It depends on who you talk to,
Yeah. God forbid, when you pass, I hope, God willing, a long time from now, yes, your obituary is going to be 3 pages long.
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, I most definitely want to leave an impact on the community, as and show other kids, specifically kids of color, that that all things are possible, and that you can go in and just learn the business. One of the things as I'm leaving, I'll say is that what my father always taught me is all business is the same. All you have to do is learn the language. And if you learn the language, then you'll be able to adjust. And so I push people to, get used to being uncomfortable, but making uncomfortable rooms comfortable for you later on.
Incredible words of wisdom. Yeah. I'm looking forward to watching this podcast again so I can fully soak in all the things you said.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard Parks Jr. and Tommy Run. Can you please tell us where we can find you?
Yeah, you can find us at TommyRun.com any day of the week. We're up 24/7, and please stop by.
Will do. And thank you very much for being on The Jungle.
Thank you. I appreciate you for having me.
Talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.